George Soros and Bill Clinton got together here in New York last night to help raise money for that costly recount in the Minnesota gubernatorial race. Last week, Mark Dayton became the first Democrat in 20 years to be elected to govern that state, and he'll do so with a Republican legislature. So while the race itself was tough, so too will be the battle to fill that state's $6.2 billion deficit. I spoke to Governor-elect Dayton yesterday and asked him what his top priority is now.
Jobs is number one. We, like the rest of the country, we have over 200,000 Minnesotans out of work, and so I campaigned on the theme of jobs. We'll have a Republican legislature, so we'll be working together in areas of common ground. I support a bonding bill of capital investments to put people back to work all over the state. So we'll find common ground, but that's the number one priority, is putting people back to work.
You've got what, a $6.2 billion budget deficit that you come into office facing. With the combination of tax hikes and cuts, what's on the table here? What programs are you not willing to cut into?
Well, I think we're going to have to turn all the revenue and expenditure cards face up on the table. Where only 5 states have worse budget deficits as a percent than Minnesota for the next biennium. So it's going to be very painful. There's no way around it. And so I've campaigned on the pledge that I would reduce the regressivity of Minnesota state and local taxes and ask upper income Minnesotans to pay closer to their appropriate share, the same amount as everybody else. And Republicans don't think that's such a great idea, but they're going to find this very difficult to cut $6.2 billion, which is about 19% of our budget, without drastically affecting especially education, which is almost half of the state expenditure.
What's upper income to you? What's wealthy?
Well, of course, that's a relative term. No one thinks they're wealthy, but my proposal would be the top 4% of Minnesota wage earners, which is about $175,000 for a couple and about $150,000 for an individual in taxable income.
So would you be willing to negotiate your definition of wealthy then?
Oh, absolutely. Everything will be negotiable because that's the nature of the process, especially with the Republican legislature. And now we have to face this very harsh reality. We have only 5 states in the nation having worse budget situation than Minnesota.
Well, beyond income tax, when I think of Minnesota, I think of Target, I think of Best Buy, I think of Medtronic. With the corporate leaders within your state, what kind of conversations have you had?
I would say to them, their success has been, and I come from the family that originated Target, Dayton Hudson, and now Target. And the Daytons grew from a family-owned department store to a nationwide retailer because of well-educated, productive workforce that came in.
The counter-argument to that is similar to one we have on a national scale, right? Which is a lot of people who make 6 figures are small business owners who are trying to grow them to the next level. They're not necessarily considering themselves to be rich. So how do you increase taxes in a way that's not going to cap growth for some of those businesses that are trying to create jobs?
Well, that's a good question. And in fact, our business tax system in Minnesota is regressive as well, because if you're a small business doing most or all of your business within Minnesota, our tax rate is high. If you're an international corporation, we have a 3-part apportionment formula. In many other states, so the effective tax rate is much lower. But in fact, most smaller businesses in Minnesota pay 4 times more in property taxes than they do in a corporate tax.
And lastly, in looking at a national scale, with the tax compromise as it's continued to be debated in Washington, there was some disappointment that the Build America bond program was not included in that. Are you disappointed, and are you considering going to the municipal bond market much in your first few months as governor?
I am looking at the bonding. The report I looked at, $1 billion of a bond issue, if it's strategically placed in the private sector, provides 28,000 jobs in the construction industry and the building trades. Now, there's a lag until those projects get underway, but certainly wise capital investment is still a basic axiom of government as well as business. If you're going to make those kind of long-term capital investments, it's worth bonding if you're going to get the economic benefits to pay them off.
So you were disappointed to see that expiration?
Well, I think they had reached their limit.
The governor did say he would be willing to negotiate his definition of wealthy.